order. First item on our agenda will be to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none. Liz?
In favor.
Dr. Berm?
You can't hear Dr.
Dr. Braun, could you turn up your volume or something? I'm just having a hard time hearing you. Just barely, but yes. You in favor?
I'm in favor.
In favor, perfect. Joe?
Aye.
Matt?
Yes.
Mike?
In favor.
Thank you. And we don't have Jack this evening. Okay, motion carries. All right. Next, we will hear the petition of Edward J. Medeiros, P.O. Box 306, Middleborough, Mass. 02346, relative to his request to allow for a special permit pursuant to Section 3.3.6 of the Middleborough Zoning Bylaws to reestablish the protected non-conforming status of the use and structure located at 112 Purchase Street, and to allow for the construction of a 28-foot by 44-foot raised ranch single-family dwelling. The subject property is located at 112 Purchase Street, Middleborough's Assessors Map 73, Lot 728. I'll declare the hearing open, and the floor is yours, Ed.
Mr. Chairman, Ed Medeiros, I guess I don't know where you'd like me to start. We went over some emails last meeting that we had, and just so that I think everyone knows, we have not had a quorum of 5. Do we have it tonight of the 5 original people that were voting on this?
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't think we do.
Yes, we do. Myself, Liz,
Okay.
Matt, Joe, and Mike Solomini. So
Okay.
we were all in attendance tonight.
Okay, so I don't see Matt. Is he on the go maybe?
He's
I'm
on
right
the,
here.
he's in the town hall here with us.
Oh, he's in the room. Okay,
Yep.
okay.
In the
All
flesh.
right, I see him now. Okay, so I guess you did get 3 emails on one day of 4/22/2021. I don't know if you want me to take them one by one. I mean, I guess the person said that they're confused. I'm confused a little because the person that wrote them first said that there was a building there, but it wasn't much of a building. And, I guess they keep stating what has happened 30 years ago, which I don't think is relevant, but if you want me to go through them line by line, I will. It's really up to you. I'm looking for some direction.
Okay. Well, what's the pleasure of the board?
I don't need to hear them again.
Matt, have you been able to go through any of those, or
Yeah, I went through it.
you good?
I know how I feel.
Liz? Do you have questions, or you want to explain, anything explained?
There seems to be a foundation.
There is a foundation. Go ahead, Ed.
Is that what they're discussing with the building?
Well, so let me say this, that I was talking to the building inspector. He was thinking that he was going to issue a permit. So I did dig the hole. I did put a footing in, and that day I called the building inspector because generally the building inspector within the week issues a permit. It had been about 3 weeks, and I called him up. I said, gee, are you going to issue the permit? He says, I think you really should go to the zoning board. So at that point, I just stopped. So there's a footing in the ground. There's no foundation. The first inspection he has is the foundation inspection. He does the footing and foundation all at once. So, I stopped at that point, and that's what it is there currently.
Okay.
So in other words, there was no grand conspiracy. There was going to be a permit issued, and then it was revoked because after review, the building inspector didn't feel he had the authority to issue it. And that's why.
That's correct.
That's why the ledger shows the blank space, because there was one going to be issued and then it was revoked. So.
Right. I think that what happens, and I can't say this for sure, but I think once you apply for a building permit, it's put as applied for at the building department.
Yep.
What they do after that, I really don't know, but my understanding is until they actually physically issue it, nothing is done. A lot of times they're looking for fire department's input, the conservation's input. Until they get those, they don't issue the permit. I really can't tell you what goes on there or how it does, but I know that, most of the time permits that I apply for are issued within the week. This one was taking longer. I was concerned about it. Certainly before I did anything that needed to be inspected, I called the inspector and he said, he felt better that I go to the zoning board. We discussed the section under which I would come to the zoning board for the special permit. It's in there just for this reason, that if a house gets torn down and there's, and it's kind of a catch-22. If there was no house ever there, I wouldn't have to come to the zoning board at all. It's a grandfathered lot, I could just build. Because they put a house there, and actually they were told by the selectmen to tear it down, then I have to come for a special permit to ask the board to give me the grandfathering that it used to have. So, that's, if the house hadn't been torn down, somebody could, tear it down and rebuild it. So, it's kind of a catch-22.
It doesn't make sense.
Well,
That does,
go ahead, Liz.
There's no question it doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't. I'll totally agree with you. If there was never a building there, the building inspector could issue the permit. There's no question he would have already issued it. Because there was a dwelling there, and, in this case, it wasn't that the people just tore it down. They were ordered by the Board of Health to tear it down, or Selectmen, which is the Board of Health. And therefore, you have to come to the zoning board to ask them to rebuild it. And that's what it says. It goes on to say that this is a case that a special permit, I'm not asking for a variance. I'm only asking for what the Middleborough zoning bylaw says, and it's section 3.3.3. It says that abandonment or not use, a non-conforming use, the 3.3.6. A conforming use or structure other than a residential dwelling which has been abandoned or not used for a period of 2 years shall lose its protected status. And then it goes on to say, by issue of a special permit, the zoning board may reestablish a residential use. If this was a commercial use, it couldn't be reestablished. They only do this on single and two-family residential buildings. So if I had a commercial use in that area and they tore it down and it wasn't 2 years, then, it certainly couldn't be reestablished. And that's what that section, and we've talked a lot about this because we actually changed it probably 10 or 12 years ago. We talked about getting rid of commercial uses in the residential area, and that's what this is doing, is getting rid of commercial uses in residential areas that are non-conforming.
Okay, so I guess the question before the board here is whether we're going to reestablish the protected status of this lot. I think we've established that a building was there. unless someone has a different opinion on that. I think the record clearly shows that there was a building there.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and I don't want to confuse anyone anymore, but there could be, I guess I could be debating that at this, because there was no septic system, the neighbors say that, there was no bathroom, no septic system in it. So is it a dwelling if it has no septic system and no bathroom? I would just rather, and I think that's why the building inspector sent me here, it's much cleaner for the zoning board to decide, you know, does it have a protected status rather than fight whether it was or wasn't a bathroom and it was or wasn't a dwelling. I mean, I will agree that I believe even if it didn't have a septic system in a bathroom, there was a dwelling on the property. But, you know, I mean, that could be fought. There's no question about that.
Well, I mean, the reason we're here is because we have to reestablish the status, because after the house was demolished, your protected status was lost.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something? My name is Alex Lambauer.
Yes, Alex.
The reason that building was destroyed is because it was half down already. The roof was all collapsed, the walls were caving in. And when I moved in there, I had a few kids, small kids, and I didn't want them going over there and getting in trouble. So that's why they ended up having to tear it down, because it was half down already.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
and it was probably the size of my shed. And like he said, there was no bathroom, there was no septic, no electricity, no nothing in it. So I have a couple of concerns on that property too.
Yep, we'll get to those in a minute. We first have to figure out where we're going with this.
Okay?
Thank you. Input from the board. Matt, you got an opinion on this?
I do,
Can you
yeah.
just bring your mic in a little closer? Thanks.
I think my input is that we're meeting all the setbacks for proposed well septic. For the property, for the abutters, at one point in time, it did have a dwelling. I think that's been established. And whether or not it had a septic, 30, 40 years ago, things were different. So as much as I think this lot is small, there are other lots relatively the same size in the same neighborhood, so I think it's sticking with the character of the neighborhood. I think Mr. Medeiros is building a structure that sticks with the character of the neighborhood, whereas he could maximize and try to do something bigger. So I think he's trying to put his best foot forward to stick with the character of the neighborhood. So he's met everything I think he needs to meet, in my opinion, so I'd be in favor of it.
Joe?
I agree with Matt. It appears that all of the requirements have been met, and the lot fitting in the neighborhood and the house fitting in the neighborhood is what we would look for. So I would be in favor of it.
Thank you. Liz? Thoughts?
I'm a little bit torn. I agree it fits in with the character of the neighborhood. I'm not real happy the way he jumped the gun, making assumptions, but that's not really why we're here. I don't have the plan to see what the lot size is. I'll go with what Matt says, saying that it's a fairly small lot size, but big enough for the house.
Just over a half acre.
Just over a half acre, Liz,
Oh, God, then that's, yeah, okay.
which is
Not
common.
a problem. Not a problem then.
I think there are some other issues with the stumps brought into the property that, to
Yeah,
get my vote, those would need to be removed.
We can deal with that. I just want to see if
so-
we're all on the same page before we get down into the nitty-gritty. Dr. Braun? Oh, he's not voting on it, that's right, I'm sorry. Mike, it's all a meeting, I'm sorry. I'm not-
Yes.
Thoughts?
To me, it sounds like it would be an improvement in the area if Matt, like Matt said, it met all the setbacks other than some other issues. It seems like an improvement to the neighborhood.
Okay. I would also agree with Matt's assessment. All right. Is there, Alex, what were some of the other concerns you had before we go too far down the road here?
One of the concerns is the stumps. How do I know that the stumps and the debris that he brought in there wasn't contaminated and it's gonna contaminate my well? You know, we don't know what's in there. Another thing is, his septic is 165 feet away from my well. And it has to be, isn't there a 200-foot limit?
Eddie, you
So-
want to respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. There is a 200-foot limit if there's under a 5-minute perk. The perks we had were 7 minutes, 6 and 7 minutes an inch. So it just made it so we only have to be 100 feet. So, you know, we're 65 feet more than the Board of Health allows. And this was approved by the Board of Health. The septic design was approved. So, you know, the Board of Health is all set with it. But, you know, it only has to be 100 feet, not 165.
Then why does it say 200 feet? I mean,
If it's under 5,
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if it's under 2-minute inch perk or under 5-minute inch perk, it has to be 200 feet. If it's over 5-minute inch perk, it only has to be 100 feet. That's what the Board of Health rules in Middleborough call for.
Well, I just don't want to have problems down the road, because who's gonna have to fix it if we do have a problem?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I don't have it in front of me right now, but I believe Alex as well, I can't really say his last name right, so I'll use his first name, sorry about that. But Alex as well is like 110 feet from his septic system. So if somebody's septic system's gonna include his well, I would think it's his, because mine is 55 feet farther away from his well than his septic itself is. His septic is 55 feet closer to his well than my septic is.
Okay.
Well,
And actually somewhat in the same direction.
Well, so long as you're meeting the Board of Health regulations, you know.
well, Mr. Chairman, can I speak?
Yes, Alex, you may.
So if mine is 100 or whatever he said it is, and he puts his in there, so now that's gonna put more nitrates into the ground, which could cause a problem, I would think.
Well, not necessarily. The reason the Board of Health has a standard set up is so that we keep everybody's well safe.
Yeah, well, who's gonna guarantee me that I'm not gonna have any problems?
There are no
Nobody.
there are no guarantees in life.
I know there isn't. But if he puts his septic in there, and I do have a problem, what do I do then?
Well, you'd have to call the health
How
department.
old is your septic currently?
What's that, sir?
How old is your septic currently?
How old is my septic? It's as old as the house, probably 35 years.
Okay, so you're probably gonna have problems soon anyways. They're not 50, 60-year septics. So, we're not here to debate the Board of Health's rules.
I'm not saying about the septic, I'm saying about my well.
Okay, I understand, but we're not the Board of Health. We don't debate their rules.
Yeah, it's
a moot point.
It's beyond my authority, so, but we take your concerns, I understand your concerns, we've addressed them. He's 65 feet further away than he has to be, so that should afford you at least some protection.
Well,
As far as the stumps go, Ed, as a condition of approval from this board, and the materials you brought in would need to be removed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have talked to DEP. DEP agreed that would be okay with them. They want to be, whether it's CC'd on this, but they would like to see my slips that where they go to, how many loads go out, and what it is. So I have to work through DEP at the same time with this. So it's no problem putting it in the permit. I understand what I did and that I shouldn't have done it, and I will take care of that.
Okay. Do you know where the material came from? Is it clean? Do we need to, does DEP gonna
No,
test
it was, right. My son's house is in Westport, and I will, go a little farther on this, but my son's house was in Westport. He had 5 trees that died and got blown over by a storm. I cut the trees up, I brought the trees, and I brought the stumps there. There was one correspondence from a neighbor that they came in from the wrong side. If they Google where my son's house is in Westport, it's at the intersection of 177 and 88. It's much easier to go up 88 to 24, across 44, to this and across Chestnut Street than it is to go 495. So that's the way we went. So, it was, and I don't know exactly, I believe it was 3 loads of stumps and 5 loads of what we call slosh, which are, parts of trees, branches, that type of stuff. I'd be willing to take 10 loads out of there. It's over in the corner, closest to Alex's house. I would make sure that they go to an approved stump site. So that's not a problem to put in the permit because I have to work with DEP and hopefully through the board with DEP on this.
Does the DEP require testing of soils in this situation?
Yes, they were notified of it, and, I did discuss it with the person from DEP. I don't have it right in front of me who it was, and, he said he wanted slips of where they go, how many loads. He didn't have a problem with it, understood what happened, and just wanted it taken care of.
Okay. One of the other issues that stuck out was the berm. There seemed to be some opposition to the berm. Was there somebody who wanted to speak on that?
Well, the board, and I guess I understand some question about the berm, but the zoning board that's in front of me now has requested that I build berms in other places. The good thing about a berm, it doesn't rot, doesn't blow down. In Alex's backyard, at the time that I did the berm, I believe there was 4 either trailers or motorhomes back there. I understand that it doesn't bother him because it was behind my property and he didn't look at it. But I guess if I was sitting in the new house I'm building, I don't really want to look at that. And generally what I do is on top of the berm, if there's still something to be seen, I put a fence on top of it. The berm, the difference between a berm and a fence is a fence you can see light through. I think we've talked about it through this board that a berm makes it so no lights go through. And in this case, I guess I wanted a little protection from the other side. And I think berms work well. I mean, they certainly separate the two properties without any question. So I'd like to leave the berm there. If, the board requires me to take it out, I don't know why they would, but, if they require me to take it out, I'll take it out.
Well, I think you have to take it out.
I just think it makes it makes a specific place that I don't have to see what's behind me and they don't have to see what's in front of me. So they could do whatever they wanted behind there.
Mr. Medeiros, isn't the stumps underneath your berm?
Yes, there are stumps beneath the berm, and I had talked to the DEP person about this. There's no question that when I bought this lot, I would say 75% of the trees were dead and rotted and falling down. And according to DEP's website, and I wish I could find it right now so I could read the exact wordage, but it does say that you can bury any stumps from that lot. You cannot import any stumps from any other place, and that's what I did with what I'm going to call the 10 loads that I'm willing to take out. But DEP's regulation does allow you to take any of the stumps on your single-family lot and bury them on that single-family lot. That is one of their exceptions to burying stumps there is.
I wasn't suggesting that we need to take it down. I know we had gotten an email or something about the berm, so I was just bringing the topic up.
Yep, I understand that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think just for degrees that it definitely makes a demarcation between one property and the other. Some people love them, some people hate them. I mean, as I think the board knows, we've done them in a couple other places and the people actually love them because, they don't have to see lights, they don't have to see anything. It certainly, separates the two properties, not only by a fence which can come down or somebody might not like the color or, what happens is there's no doubt over time grass will grow on this and that, somebody's going to weed whack it down because they're going to want it to look like their backyard. So, I just don't see the problem with having a berm any place. There's no, it's not prohibited by any bylaw. It's not even talked about really. So, I just don't see any problem with having it there.
Mr. Chairman,
Liz?
speaking about the berm, landscaping. If I were looking at a huge pile of dirt, yes, there's no light coming through, and yes, it gives privacy, but I don't expect you to just scatter a little bit of grass seed, hope that it grows so that eventually I can trim it into maybe looking like my yard. I think we need to consider landscaping it, and we would need to know what the landscape project would be.
I could do that. I guess I'd be looking from the board what they might be looking for. I guess if we're talking about some low-growing bush that keeps winding out, that's what I'd be looking to do. I wouldn't be looking to grow anything very tall there. It would only be if people have driven by it, they can see that there's just a ton of wood chips there. There's probably 10 loads of wood chips, and what I would do is initially chip it, which if you've driven down 28, you can see what it looks like, and it doesn't look bad. So my opinion is what I would originally do is chip it, but eventually it does grow out, and people generally just cut it down, and that's what it ends up being. So certainly isn't intended to be their backyard grass, but is just a buffer between two properties.
Then why couldn't you consider putting bushes, lower bushes? Putting wood chips means weeds grow up between the wood chips. And it looks messy, it looks scraggly, it looks unkempt.
I would be happy if you have an idea of what type of bush you would like and how many bushes you would like. I'd rather put that into the permit, so it's definitely in the permit, but it's up to you.
You have some suggestions on plants, Liz?
I don't think this board should be recommending landscaping. I think the applicant should come before the board and us approve it or deny it.
Well,
We shouldn't get it, we're not in the business to do landscaping. The applicant can come before us, give us a plan, and we either approve it or not.
Mike, if the board's making a suggestion, it's incumbent upon us to have some input on the suggestion.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, may I say something?
Yes, Alex, what can we do?
Well, first, I don't really like that berm. I have to live next to it, you know? So no matter what he does to it, it's not gonna look good. And he's talking about my motorhome, and I have a couple of trailers and a boat. I mean, where else am I supposed to put it, you know? Right now, they're out front because I'm gonna start using them, but in the winter, I put them out back. So I don't see what the big deal is about that. I mean, if you go around town, everyone's got campers and boats and everything, you know?
Well, I think it was more of his personal view that he didn't want to view what was in your backyard.
Yeah. And then another thing about the property is, it's only 23,000 square feet. And if you look at all the other properties around here, they're at least an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres.
So there's a lot of half-acre lots down that end. I live down that end. I live off of Rocky Gutter, and half the
Yeah.
street's half acres, and the other half is only an acre. So there's a lot
That's at the beginning of the street. Where I live, it's not like that though. You know, you're talking a couple acres at least, you know?
Right across the street from the public park there, what is it, Walden? Those are all .69 acres, there's about 10 of them in a row.
Yep.
So,
It's
that's
very
diagonally
common for
across
the
your
area.
house.
They were all those houses were built roughly around the same time.
Yeah, well, I think it's gonna stick out like a sore thumb putting on that house right there. Because I don't think it's gonna fit. I mean, they didn't make bylaws just so you could override them, you know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly what we do here.
Yeah, well,
We're the Zoning Board of Appeals, that's what we do.
I know.
Mr. Chairman?
Ed?
Just, you know, I don't want to push the subject, but Alex happens to put his trailers and boats and camper behind my lot, so he doesn't see them from his house. So I guess, you know, that's what I'm saying is that he doesn't park them in his direct backyard. He parks them behind my lot, so he doesn't see them from his house in the winter. So if he probably doesn't want to see them in the winter, I'm sure that the person that would be buying the house that I'm building doesn't want to see them all winter either. So, but, you know, that's just, you know, just so the board knows.
Mr. Maderas, that is not true, because I park it right behind my house so I could see it. So in case something happens, I could go out there if someone's out there, you know, because we have a lot of motorcycles and snowmobiles coming through the corner of my property. So I see exactly what's in my backyard. So that what you just said is not true.
Okay. Is there any other outstanding issues for this hearing from any other board member? All right, hearing none. Is there any other questions from the audience? For or against? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, did you read on what Mrs. Sylvia wrote on her emails?
Yes, her emails have been received.
Okay, she has a lot of good points that she brought up on her emails, so,
Well, she made a lot of points, but a lot of the points were only having half the information, so I don't know that I have them in front of me. But all the points in her letters were addressed by Mr. Majerus. All right, to the board, does anybody have a problem with the berm?
Nope.
Liz? You want plants on it? What do you want to put?
Yeah, I think if he just scatters wood chips on something that's going to be, what appears to be as tall as he claims it's going to be, they degrade, they rot, the weeds poke up, it looks scraggly.
Mr. Chairman?
I mean, if I was selling a property, who wants to have a scraggly looking bunch of weeds on a berm in the back of a house? I mean, it makes no sense to me.
Eddie, do you have some idea of what you might put there?
Yeah, I would suggest that we could put it in the permit that I would be happy.
Let Liz, I can hear it, 1 second. Eddie, your connection's kind of breaking up, could you try that
Thank
again?
you.
Okay. Yeah, I would be happy, I would rather have it put in the permit, but I would be happy to put a number. I think we should pick a number, whether it be, I would think that the berm being 100 feet long, every 10 feet, so that's 10 of them, and say 10 at the bottom, scattered in the middle, 10 at the top. So, the board may ask for approximately 30 low growing bushes. I wouldn't want anything going more than, a foot to foot and a half tall, and be a diameter, if for planting, of 1 foot around, that they would grow to 3 to 4 feet around, so that they would pretty near touch each other at full growth, which probably is 4 or 5 years away. But I would be happy to do that.
That sounds reasonable.
Right. I mean, just so the board understands, because I don't want any miscommunication, I would chip it first and then put those around it, so the chips are around them, and they would grow around the chips and, start to cover up the chips. But the chips would certainly, I use wood chips regularly for landscaping, and that's what would be around, 2 sides of the lot anyway. So,
Okay.
But I have no problem putting the landscaping in. I think it would be better to be described in a permit rather than shown on a plan that, it needs to be described anyway.
So 30 low-growing bushes,
Yep.
random placement on the berm.
Yep. Yeah, I think, they should be scattered. I'm saying one low, one high, some in between, but certainly even the low ones and the high ones should be scattered, a couple of 3 feet up and down from each other.
Okay, we'll leave the plant selection to you. But it should be at least 1 foot around.
Yep.
Does that sound reasonable, Liz?
It does sound reasonable. I was just quickly doing a Google search on acid-loving plants, because by the time the wood chips finish up, it's going to be very acid soil, especially since you've got stumps already buried in it.
Yeah, no,
But-
it's,
He has the experience, he should know
Okay.
what goes in the proper soil.
yep,
I like the idea.
there you go.
Mr. Chairman, I would, I deal with Splains regularly. I would go to Splains and look for suggestions on what type of plant to plant.
Okay. All right, being there no other outstanding issues, I will close the hearing, and what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion?
Yes, I would suggest a motion.
Okay. I would like to approve the petition of Edward J. Maderos, P.O. Box 306, Middleborough, Mass. 02346, relative to his request to allow for a special permit pursuant to Section 3.3.6 of the Middleborough Zoning Bylaws to reestablish the protected non-conforming status of the use and structure located at 112 Purchase Street, and to allow for the construction of a 28 by 44 raised single-family dwelling. The subject property is located at 112 Purchase Street, Middleborough Assessors Map 73, Lot 728. In addition to that, we would require the applicant to remove stumps that were dumped on this property, approximately 10 loads. That removal shall be in accordance with the regulations by the DEP, and proof of removal shall be given to the DEP
And this board.
and this board. And secondly, we would also request that 30 landscape plants randomly placed on a earth berm on the back of the lot, 1 foot in diameter size, installed along with wood chips, be placed on the back of the berm at completion of the project.
Okay. The only thing I would like to add to that would be that the stumps are removed before the building permit is issued.
I would be accepting of that requirement.
Motion made, do we have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Liz?
In favor?
Mike?
In favor?
Matt?
In favor.
Joe?
Aye.
And myself in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Maderas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the board for spending as much time as we have on this project. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next hearing we have is to hear the petition of Linda Shoemaker, 215 Cherry Street, Middleborough, Mass. 02346, relative to her request to allow for an amended special permit, number 13-12, from a hobby kennel license to a commercial kennel license. Subject property is located at 215 Cherry Street, Middleborough's Assessors Map 108, Lot 1942. I'll declare the hearing open, and the floor is yours, Linda. Hang on.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me now?
There we go, yep.
Okay, good, okay. I had an operation because I had a bunion, and it got real bad. And that's what it looked like before I had the operation. And this is what the operation looked like. And I asked Ginny to take care of the dogs because I was laid up for a long time, and I'm still laid up. And I have to go back for the other foot. So he's my partner. We work together. We grew up, with construction and everything. So he's been a good friend. We've been doing dogs together. I can't walk a lot. I'm not supposed to. But I love my dogs. And I just wanted him to help me because my feet. And I have to get better because I'm 62 and I want to walk. So I kind of he has some dogs.
You're rambling.
Oh, I'm sorry. He has some dogs, and he's been helping me, so I'll let him talk.
What she's trying to get at, members of the council, is I have 3 dogs at my house, and I help Linda here. I helped Linda with her husband while her husband was getting ready to pass away. You had a lot of complaints back then with the dogs, I'll admit it. I used to wheel Dawn out onto the porch, and the dogs would bark when they seen Dawn because they knew they were getting treats. They were getting hot dogs. He used to send me to the store to go get them hot dogs. He couldn't walk no more. He was a W amputee. Okay, then finally Linda got him a wheelchair. We got him out there, and that's why the dogs were barking before. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try to blow any smoke. Yes, the dogs were loud before. I'm not going to lie about it. But since Dawn has passed,
2 years ago.
we haven't been having the noise issues we were having. You know, Linda had a new neighbor move in next door, and there's been construction going on in that house now since this person has moved in there. They put a new septic system in last year, tore the whole yard up, had it open half the year. They got a pool up out there now. They were building a deck this week. She's been re-renovating the house. The dogs are trained to alert when somebody is there that is not supposed to be there. That's what they are doing. If anybody is complaining, it's because there's construction going right next door to Linda's. It's on the other side of the fence. I can bring yous out there right now. There's 9 dogs out there, and they won't make a peep. The only time they bark or make noise is when someone's in the yard or someone is next door working. They're hammering, they're banging, there's a machine running. Or like 2 houses down, Mike Alger just moved. He had a couple of mastiffs. They were pretty loud too. They've been over there redoing his septic system. So the equipment, the dogs are gonna bark. That, you know, I mean, you all must own animals yourself. If somebody comes into your yard that doesn't belong there, your dogs are gonna bark.
And I put the back collar
You
down.
know, we've been through this, just a couple, maybe a month or so ago, the dog officer, Jen, had come here. They had a problem with a dog up the street that we had sold to somebody. A gentleman had gone into the hospital, and I had talked to her about going up in this permit. And I went over there, and I actually tried to get the dog for her out of the house to get the dog here. I couldn't get the dog out. The dog went after me, went to attack me. Got my arm a little bit, but not bad. The lady that was trying to hold him back couldn't get him out. But I'm understanding that they don't want to issue the permit to Linda. But when I talked to her a month or 2 ago, she told me there was no problem. I'm just don't know what happened. Is it because I didn't get the dog out for her? She was willing to write a special permit for us to bring the dog here and have the dog here. We already have 2 rescues on the property from Sandy Paws Rescue. A friend of ours owns the Canine Complex out of Mashpee, Mass, and he works with Sandy Paws Rescue. We right now have, if we can't go up in the permit, even a couple, I have 2 dogs tomorrow that I have to put to sleep that we rescue. You know, we're not about trying to go up in numbers and make a puppy mill. We're far from that. Linda has a 130 by 60 foot spaced metal building. It's all fenced in out there. There are 6 pens, 20 by 20 pens outside with doggy doors that go inside to the building, which the pens are 20 by 20. We heat the building every year. These dogs live the life of the rich and famous. You know what I mean? They are quiet. I can bring you out there right now. I can walk out there with the phone. I can show you how quiet they are. The dogs only bark when there is people that do not belong in the area, or if the dog 2 houses down decides to bark, or if the coyotes that are in the cranberry bogs in the back are howling, which is all know there's a problem with the coyotes out behind Cherry Street. There was a pack of 14 of them. I believe environmental police come in and took out 7 or 8 of them earlier this year because they were running wild. You know, like I say, you know, I'm babbling now.
Okay.
I admit we had problems in the past. You know, when Dawn was here, you know, I used to wheel him out. The guy was a W amputee, you know, pardon me, Linda, but he was on his deathbed. And I used to wheel him out there, and the dogs would be so happy to see him that they would freak out and bark. I mean, how can you complain about a dog being happy to see their master who's been laid up in the hospital or in a bed because he just got his legs amputated? You know? And then we went to Linda, got him a wheelchair, electric wheelchair. I could bring him out there in an electric wheelchair. Of course they were going to bark. They were happy to see him. He's feeding them hot dogs. He'd yell out on the porch, "Hey, babies!" They'd freak out. You know, I mean, lately, they've been awful quiet. You know, I watched Dawn for her while Linda worked. I got the dogs under control. You know, my wife was generous enough to let me spend a lot of time here, and, you know, my wife's very understanding, you know, and let me watch Dawn so Linda could work. They put Linda under a thing where he needed 24-hour watch. As you all know, go look, check all the records of the Middleborough Fire Department coming here to pick them up. They were here a lot. And when I
That's
came
okay,
here,
we're not here for that. So,
I know.
let me just
You-
interrupt you, because I've got to move some of this a little bit along.
Okay, I'm sorry for babbling.
No, you're fine. I'd like to give everybody their say.
Okay.
You're just getting a little off topic, that's all.
Okay, I'm sorry, but
Nope, not a problem. Hang on now. I'm gonna read a letter into the record from the Middleborough Animal Control Office. This letter is dated May 27th.
Yep.
Attention Zoning Board of Appeals. And they also CC'd Linda Shoemaker. I'm not sure if you received a copy of this yet or not.
she did, she's got it.
Okay. In regards to kennel license for kennel owned and operated by Linda Shoemaker of 215 Cherry Street, Middleborough, Mass. 02346. This letter is to discuss with the Zoning Board of Appeals increasing the number of dogs at the above listed address. Linda Shoemaker has had a hobby kennel license for several years. This kennel license allows a maximum of 9 adult dogs to be on the property. On more than one occasion, there have been more than the allowed number of dogs at the property during our annual inspections, over the allowed number by at least 4 dogs. Puppies are not included in the count per the state law. On January 14th, 2020, the number of dogs counted by our animal inspector was 13. Previously, on May 9th, 2018, we discussed the amount of dogs allowed because there were 16 adult dogs on the property when inspecting at the request of the state veterinarian. With the previous concerns regarding commercial kennels in residential areas, this property does not meet the agricultural requirement to have an exemption. I will attach the complaints submitted by the concerned residents regarding the barking dogs. This barking was witnessed by myself. At this time, I am not in favor of increasing the kennel limit in this facility. If you have any further questions, please contact me at the phone number. All right, the second page of this letter. This is on May 9, 2018, the Animal Control inspected the kennel residents of 215 Cherry Street per Massachusetts State Veterinarian. We were asked to place the facility on quarantine until further notice. During our inspection, 16 adult dogs were counted and documented for the quarantine, as well as numerous canines less than 6 months of age for multiple litters. Mrs. Shoemaker stated that she knew she was over the limit. Mrs. Shoemaker has a kennel license for 9 adult dogs. Barking was heard and witnessed by the Animal Control Department on Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. Dogs could be heard barking at the kennel facility from neighbors' homes. Barking lasted for 20 minutes. The AOC was at the home. Complainant wishes to remain anonymous at this time. Complainant stated that the dog started barking around 7 a.m. and continued to bark until late in the day, sometimes until dark. Complainant also stated that the dogs bark every day, including weekends. Animal Control Officer visited the residence kennel located at 215 Cherry Street. I witnessed the dogs were still in the barn, but they were barking and could be audibly detected from neighbors' homes. Mrs. Shoemaker stated she forgot to put the no bark collars on the dogs before she left for the day. Animal Control Officer discussed with Mrs. Shoemaker that she would need to fix the barking situation. 6/13/2018, anonymous, neighbor called to report barking. 6/14/2018, neighbor called to report the dogs are barking and he's yelling at the dogs, as well as crowing, oinking, and swearing. I'm not sure what that's about. Yelling that he knows it was her that called and yelled more obscenities. Apparently you're arguing with the neighbor. 6/14/2018, Linda Shoemaker called to inform us that one of her dogs got loose. In the case, we got a call from a found dog. 6/15/2018.
Well, you gave that dog away.
Linda called to inform us that she got her numbers down. 2/14/2019, anonymous caller for dogs from 215 Cherry Street have been barking for hours. Called Linda and she stated she forgot to put the collars on and would do what she can. Okay.
Are you still there?
Yes, we're here. Can you hear me?
Okay, we know who the complainant is, so it doesn't have to stay anonymous. It's Linda's new neighbor. She's been doing all kinds of construction over there, like I told you in the beginning. You know, she's over there, she's been building pools, doing all kinds of stuff. You know,
Okay,
So-
that doesn't address the barking, though.
What do we do?
I mean, that's what's going on over there right now. There's the fence for the pool. Okay, that's the type of neighbor she's got, you know. There's dogs next door, like we've said, and like I admitted like I told you in the beginning. Back then, the dogs barked. I will not lie, the dogs were barking. They're trained to bark. If you go and you check the police record, she's also had a .45 caliber police revolver stolen out of her house. Okay, the dogs are here to protect her. There's a couple out there that are trained to alert. You know, and if somebody's over there doing construction like they've been now for years since she bought the house, they did the septic system. The latest thing this week is the deck, the pool. I mean, all the construction going on around here.
I understand what your neighbors are doing, but we're here to discuss your permit and not what your neighbors are doing.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that's why the dogs are barking. You
Okay,
know,
well,
I'm being
the
honest. I'm not trying to blow any smoke.
Again,
I mean-
we need to get the barking under control. That's your main issue, and it's well
Okay.
documented.
Just for a little walk for a second?
I don't think we have time.
No, I'm not looking for bark. I'm just gonna go right out here.
Anyway,
That's what it looks like.
I'm aware of what your property looks like, Mrs. Shoemaker. I've been there.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so what we can do?
Well, hang on, you're going to let me finish my hearing, what we're going to do. I have another letter to read in. It's from Tammy Pierce. She lives at 221 Cherry Street, next door neighbor for the past 3 years. Is this the neighbor you are talking about?
Yeah, we know.
Okay. Okay, let me read her letter in. She says, I am a peaceful resident who just spent thousands updating my home and yard to be a sanctuary, and I could call my forever home. Spending time outdoors is very important to the quality of my life. Upon moving to 221 Cherry Street, I pretty immediately experienced constant barking from 215 Cherry Street. I called the dog officer as the barks were just not stopping. She was very understanding and told me about the possibility that Mrs. Shoemaker was to apply for a commercial kennel license, but I was assured that would not come to be. Next morning, I was subject to harassing moo sounds, chicken clucks, and cock-a-doodle-doos, and a man yelling. Just let me read the letter, please. Sound bites, first complaint taken from inside bedroom. I reported this to the Middleborough Police as I was about to leave for 12 days and was concerned about safety. Following that, the level of dog noise next door continued, but to keep the peace, I moved my office from a beautiful sunny family room to the back of the house to the dark front foyer. My work as an accountant and auditor requires quiet analysis and constant conference calls, but I respect that neighbors will have pets and enjoy they enjoy, and I'm okay with accommodating to a degree. I really didn't want to stir up trouble. Barking continues today. Not much has changed. I have recent recordings since receiving the appeals letter coming from inside and outside the house. 1 to 2 dogs max in the yard. I was finally getting used to the constant puppy chirping and the dogs barking, as well as the owners screaming, "Shut up," at the dogs. My grandchildren visit often and we play in the backyard, maybe 50 feet max from where the dog fence ends. If the dog is in the fence area, the children hears the children. Barking ensues and scares the children, so we are forced inside to the front yard. Again, I respect the neighbors will have pets and they enjoy, and I'm okay with accommodating to a degree. I am a good tax-paying Middleborough citizen and deserve quality of life, which is why I am speaking up against the special permit in hopes that the town of Middleborough will not allow the commercial kennel is defined as a commercial establishment which a pack or collection of more than 10 dogs, 3 months old or older, are housed, groomed, bred, boarded, or trained, or sold. 10 dogs, a commercial kennel license, Cherry Street would per Middleborough zoning bylaws, go against. And then she lists off use regulations, non-conforming use structure, and says it would be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming use to the neighborhood. The following types of changes of non-conforming, she quotes the bylaw. As well, there must be some property line setback buffering requirements that need to be established. That fence is at my property line. Over 10 animals, German Shepherd really does not provide safety barrier, thinking of my grandchildren running in the yard additionally. Also state, except for, this implies the zoning. All right, she's quoting the section 10 states variances must not cause substantial detrimental public good. Officially, we have the right to quiet enjoyment of our properties in theory, and also means my neighbors don't have the right to do anything on their property that will interfere with my rights to maintain and enjoy a quiet home. If this variance is granted anyway, I will appeal. Thank you for your time and consideration. Tammy Pierce, 21 Cherry Street. Okay.
Sir, could I ask you a question?
You may ask a question.
Okay. If she's complaining about the dogs over here, what is going to be next? The horses across the street?
There's nothing to do with the
No, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean? This is what happens when a new neighbor moves into a neighborhood, like I told you. And if she's on here, she can either come up and deny it or not deny it. She's been working on that house for the last 2 years. She just said it to you in that letter. She's had numerous contractors over there, had a brand new septic system, and tore the whole backyard up. Had it open for about 4 months.
Okay.
That's why the dogs have been barking. You know, with all that construction going on over there, they're gonna bark. There's people over there that they don't know.
Well,
If she-
it's your responsibility to keep your dogs under control and to keep the
They
noise
are.
level down. Well, apparently they're not, according to the animal control officer.
If she was to come over and say hello to the dogs and the dogs get to know her, our dogs aren't vicious. Our dogs would kiss the kids to death. She'd have the dogs over, a couple of dogs over there playing with her kids. You know, I mean, I can show you videos if anybody is on Facebook on here. My videos of me playing with all of them, with people around. They're our babies. You know, I mean,
That's all well and good, but you know, your enjoyment of your animals may not be what your neighbors want to enjoy about your animals.
I know, I understand your position, Tyler,
Okay.
I do. But if she's complaining about us, what's gonna be next? The neighbor next door that we sold 2 dogs to? Or the guy 2 houses down from us that we sold 2 dogs to? The guy across the state trooper across the street who purchased a pup from us that's gonna start barking another month? You know what I mean? There's dogs all over this neighborhood, sir. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to make...
And none of them have the right to bark incessantly for long periods of time without being controlled.
Yeah, I understand that, and it's
Okay.
like I explained to you, sir, I've had them under control, they've been quiet, except for that construction that's going on over there. If they're over there working in the backyard, she trimmed the fence line out, we had a woods line there. There was enough trees there so you couldn't see through her property. When they did the septic system, she opened that all up.
Well,
Now the
that
dogs-
was obviously her property then.
I know, sir,
Okay.
I'm not disputing that at all. I'm not at all.
So what
Okay.
do we do?
Hang on. You
Can I
have-
say something? So this is Tammy Pierce.
Yeah, one
All right.
second, Tammy.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good. So I didn't have the septic system done. I had a well replaced when I first moved in because I had bacteria in my well. So it wasn't
Yeah,
something.
we know that dirt contaminated Linda's soil, we got
All right,
toxicity over here.
all right. You know what? You're gonna be quiet so she can speak. You have your floor. She's got the floor now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the recordings is at night. It's last week and it's at night. And in the living room, I can hear the dogs barking if I have the, not even the windows open.
Yep.
I can hear Linda screaming at the dogs to shut up all the time.
Okay.
It's not something that has anything to do with construction. It's just an ongoing nuisance, and I've learned to deal with it for the last 3 years. I've been there 3 years, and I've had 3 projects in the backyard, and the current project, the deck, is done now, so you shouldn't hear anything more from that. But the yard is done, and that shouldn't have anything to do with the barking dog problem, and I'm okay with a couple barking dogs. I mean, it is what it is. I get it. People have pets. But to have 10 dogs, 10 plus dogs or more, it's a scary thing. I have grandchildren who are 6 and 4, and we can't even kick the ball in the backyard because your fence is right there. And it's very loud, and it's ongoing. And sometimes it's after 10 o'clock and before 8 o'clock, the time ordinance. So, I'm not trying to cause trouble. I need my peace.
I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
I understand completely, ma'am. But what you don't hear is the coyotes.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that's fine. We're gonna move forward. Is there
what-
any?
what-
Okay, you've had your moment to speak. I'm gonna speak. Members of the board, does anybody want to have any input on this?
I think I'm just going to stick with the dog office's assertion. You have a license for 9. Multiple times you've, on inspections, been found to have more than 9 adult dogs. And if you're not going to follow your hobby kennel license, why would we want to give you more? You have a license to have 9 dogs, and multiple times you've been in violation of that. So I'm with Kelly, the animal control officer, that I'm not in favor of increasing this kennel license until such a time as you can demonstrate you can actually abide by the hobby license that you have.
Thank you, Matt.
There you go.
Joe?
Mr. Chairman?
Liz, 1 second. Joe has the floor.
Yes, I agree that with Kelly, her letter is straightforward. She's not in favor of the additional limits, and I agree with her.
Thank you. Liz?
I have to agree with both Joe and with Matt. At this point, if she hasn't controlled with the number of dogs that she's allowed with a hobby license, she's not going to necessarily stop. Also, if she's having surgery and is going to be off her feet, even if she has help, they're not there 24/7. So at this point, I can't see increasing the number of dogs. I honestly can't.
Dr. Braun, did you have an input?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to repeat what my 3 colleagues said on the board, but basically I'm in agreement with all of them. The applicant seems to have a very poor track record in keeping with the existing guidelines for the hobby kennel, and I can't imagine that they would not abuse a commercial license.
I appreciate
We
that.
wouldn't do that. Could I just explain why we had a number of dogs here?
I'm finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to be heard, either for or against? Hearing none. If you want to make another comment, sir, you get, what's your name for the record, please?
I'm Kenneth Lawrence.
Kenneth, thank you, Kenneth.
Yeah.
Do you live in Middleborough?
No, I live in Taunton. I've been a resident of Taunton, Mass. Well, I'm born in Raynham. I live in Taunton at 162 Winthrop Street.
Thank you.
Can I explain why we had a couple extra dogs here, if you don't mind, at one point in time?
You can explain it if you like, but there's no excuse for exceeding the permit.
Well, what happened, sir, is, and like I told you from the beginning, I'm being totally honest. When Dawn got sick and I came here to look after Dawn, I have 3 dogs at my house. That put us over the limit one time, which I'm not going to lie about it. We were over the limit. And then the other time when she came and we were over our limit, we were trying to do a favor for a fellow kennel owner of ours that had to move his whole kennel to North Carolina from Mashpee, Mass. What happened is he couldn't move all the dogs at the same time to North Carolina and set up his kennels down here. He asked to keep them here for a day or two. We should have thought about it. We didn't think there was a problem in it. And of course, boom, she showed up. I mean, I didn't lie to her. She checked all the names. She has all the names of the dogs, which were Raffy, Merla, all of them. You can check. They were registered to another kennel called Von Mello Shepherds, John Von Mello. They were only here for 2 days, sir. They were put in a truck, in crates, and brought to North Carolina by myself. I traveled to Hampstead, North Carolina, to bring his dogs to him. It was a temporary situation. We didn't think it was going to cause any problems. And I mean, that's what happened. You know, I have no reason to lie to you. Anybody that knows me, I know a lot of people on the city council in Taunton too, and they'll tell you, I'm a stand-up guy. I'm straight to the point. I'm blunt, and I have no reason to lie.
Okay, thank
You
you.
know?
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, sir. And,
If there are no more comments on this hearing, I'm going to close the hearing.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we do not approve this special permit. So they want me to
Put that
go
in the
through?
form of a motion? please?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we do not approve the petition of Linda Shoemaker, 215 Cherry Street, Middleborough, Mass. 02346, relative to her request to allow for an amendment to her special permit number 13-12 from a hobby kennel license to a commercial kennel license. Subject property is located 215 Cherry Street, Middleborough, Middleborough, Assessors Map 108, Lot 1942, based on the Animal Control Officer's recommendation not to increase the kennel limit due to prior infractions.
Motion made?
Second.
Motion made and second. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Matt?
In favor.
Joe?
Aye.
Dr. Braun?
Favor?
Liz?
In favor.
And myself in favor. Motion to deny is carried. Thank you for your participation tonight.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are to go into executive session, not to return to regular meetings, so anyone else on here who's not a member of the board, have a good evening.
Mr. Chairman?
We have to do findings first.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to do findings, I'm sorry. Anybody want to do them?
I've done it. Yeah.
You did. Do you have them, Joe? Joe could read them.
I'll read them.
Mr. Chairman?
Dr. Braun?
Yeah, I was just going to ask whether we're going to have a discussion about the potential zoning change in association with the train coming to Middleborough.
We're going to discuss that at the next meeting, which will be before the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen, so that's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting. We have an executive session to discuss pending litigation tonight, so that's going to take up the rest of the evening.
When is that discussion going to take place, please?
At the next meeting, which will be June, what's the date? June 10th. June 10th.
Okay,
The joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board will be June 15th.
June 10th is our only meeting, right?
I believe so, for the month of June.
I can't make it.
Keep that up. Go ahead, Joe. Read findings.
The findings for
112 Purchase Street.
112 Purchase Street. The proposed site is appropriate for the use or structure. 112 was.
No, what are you talking about?
I was thinking the yellow one.
It's okay.
I'm on the yellow one.
We just get a little ahead. That's all right.
112 purchase.
Go ahead, Joe.
Adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided to ensure proper operation of the use, structure, or condition. Traffic flow and safety, including parking, loading, are adequate, and there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Adequate water, sewer, and other utilities, as well as the public and private services, are available or will be provided. The use involved will not be detrimental to the established or future characteristics of the neighborhood and town, and subject to appropriate conditions or safeguards if deemed necessary.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Motion made and second. Joe?
Aye.
Matt?
Do we have to put all the stipulations in with this motion at this time, or is it?
This is just the motions for findings. You can include it if you'd like, if you want to read them.
Oh, I didn't write it down.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Dr. Braun?
Aye.
Aye. Liz?
Aye.
And, I'm sorry. Mike Salamini?
Aye.
And myself. Motion carries unanimously. All right. So this will conclude the regular meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. We will now close this session to executive session to discuss pending litigation, and we will not return to regular session. So if you are not on the board, I'd ask you to sign off.
You may have to sign off or something.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to sign them. And then you gotta stop the recording, Darren.
Yeah, I know. What's that?
What do we have to adjourn? No, you don't adjourn, but you don't adjourn.
No.